Hi, my name is Ann Webb, and I'm a life vision expert, trainer, and mentor. And the reason that I am here to talk about life vision is because I am incredibly passionate about it. And the reason that I am is because it's absolutely changed my life. So it starts clear back like 20-something years ago. And at that time, my husband and I were just getting out of graduate school. He got accepted, and he had been accepted into an Ivy League school, and I had put him through undergraduate, graduate school. 6 years later, we're finally done. And I couldn't wait. Had been looking forward to this for a lot of years. I had a couple of kids, and all I wanted to do was get out. And he promised me, when we get out of school, things are going to be different. You can stay home with the kids. Life's going to be easy. Well, we had tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of student dollars in student loans that now, once you're out of school, you have to start paying back. And of course, upon graduation, he takes an entry-level job, which just means they're going to pay you peanuts, in Washington, D.C., which at the time was the most expensive city in the country. Student loans that now had to be paid off, working for peanuts and living in Washington, D.C., so I had to continue to make money. So we couldn't afford to do anything. We would always have friends come over and play games. And I was always would make a pitcher of lemonade or water with a big pound of brownies. And we'd play cards. But one day we had some really close friends come over, and they decided they wanted milk with the brownies. So they just go into the kitchen and help themselves. They poured themselves a glass, and then another one, passed it around to everyone that was there, another one till the point where they finally threw the empty container into the garbage can. And let me just say that when they left, I broke down into sobs because I knew we had to have water on our cereal the rest of the week because we couldn't afford the $1 for a gallon of milk. So that was our situation when my dad called me. And he said, I know you can't afford it, but I'd like you to come home for Christmas. And I'll send you some money to pay for the airline tickets for you and your kids and your husband to come home. And so he said, and the reason I want you to come home is because I am so excited to share a couple of things. I have two really, really cool ideas that I cannot wait to tell you about. And I have to say, I was really intrigued by that. And I was like, well, just tell me. And he's like, no, sorry, just wait till you get home. Wait till you get home for the holidays. Fly home to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where my family lived. And I remember walking in the entryway and just dropping my suitcases and go, okay, tell me, what are these two cool ideas that you are so excited about? And we go into the family room, and he goes in his bedroom and grabs this little bag. And he shows it to me, and it's really cute. It's this Christmas fabric bag tied with a little bow, cinnamon stick, gift card, and it smells really, really good. I'm like, what is this? And he said, oh, it's your mom's wassail recipe. And so, this girl that kind of grew up in my neighborhood, she and her husband sold it at craft shows, and they made $30,000 last month in November. Okay, so when he says that, my eyes get about this big, because $30,000, I mean, holy cow, that was more than my husband and I made in an entire year, and they made it in a single month. And it was my mom's recipe. And so so he's telling me about this, and I'm like, wow. And he goes, I'm thinking, because it's your mom's recipe, they're doing it in California, why don't you go ahead and sell it back in the D.C. area, back on the East Coast? So we just started talking about it, and I was really excited about my next business. And then I remember he had two really good ideas, and I'm like, hey, do you have another idea? What was that second idea? Okay, now this is when he got animated and just started talking 100 miles a minute. And he's like, oh my gosh, I hired myself a coach. Okay, and he's going on and on. But I was so hung up on that, I hired myself a coach, that I didn't hear another word he said, because all I could think of was, wow, Dad, you are way too old to play sports. But what I did catch was he said, I wrote this creed, this vision of the ideal me living my life in all different areas. And he said, and what I've been able to accomplish in the last 18 months was virtually almost all the goals that I had for my entire life, other than just a few. And he went on to say, you know, I paid my house off. I've made over $150,000 a year in the last year. Okay, I mean, that's a good income now, but in the 80s, that was incredible. And I started looking around my parents' house and going, things do look a little different around here. And so he finally bottom lined it for me, and he said, what I'm thinking is between this new goal setting method that I've learned about and this business idea, maybe you can get something going for yourself financially. We flew home, and then you have New Year's. I was dead on with setting my New Year's resolutions. So my typical way of setting goals, which is what I set out to do, was grab a notebook and start bullet pointing my goals. And then I remembered, oh yeah, my dad has a different idea. Went into the room, got the book, came back and started reading it. And it said, write your goals, first person, present tense, as if they had already happened. Okay, a little mainstream now, not that weird, but let me just tell you, in the 80s, that was really, really edgy, a little weird. Write it as if you were already that kind of person. Let me just say this. I'm hungry, and I'm like, what do I have to lose? And so I began reading the book again and writing my goals as if they already happened. When I got to the financial part, I wrote a little paragraph that went something like this. I have a wassail business. By December 31st, 1989, I make $20,000 selling 2,000 bags of wassail at 6 craft shows. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, I make the necessary phone calls and accomplish the tasks that I need to. And it feels incredible to be on top of things financially. So something similar to that. And then, of course, the book suggested that you do it in all areas of your life. So I did it in spiritual, relationships, physical, financial, professional, and personal development. But when I was done, I had about a one and a half page typed, my first ever life vision. And I thought I was done. It wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be, and I thought I was done. And I realized that the back of the book, what I thought was the back of the book, was really just a divider to part 2. And I realized that, turned over to part 2, and it said, now record it with Baroque, on a cassette player with Baroque music playing in the background. Well, let me just put it this way. If I thought part 1 was weird, let me tell you what I thought about part 2. I about took that book and just threw it into the garbage can. But again, it was like, oh, I spent a couple hours on this. My dad said it worked. I saw evidence that it worked. I might as well just keep going for it. And so I decided to go to the library. I checked out a big, bulky tape recorder and asked the librarian if she had any Baroque music. And she's like, honey, that's Baroque music, not Baroque music. I didn't even know what it was, honestly. And so I got these cassettes of music, the cassette player, and I headed home, grabbed my kid's Fisher-Price tape recorder, and headed up into my bedroom. And I got the tape recorder, started playing the music, started reading my life vision into my kid's Fisher-Price tape recorder. I was into it probably 30, 40 seconds. When all of a sudden my kids come running in the room, Mom, she's hitting me, get her off of me. Okay, and they're just screaming, and there's all this racket. And so I have to solve the problem with them, rewind both tapes, get them all queued up, and start over. This time I remembered to lock the door so we couldn't have the kids running in. But I forgot to take the phone off the hook. A couple minutes into the second attempt, the phone starts ringing, which is now on my recording. The next time it was the tape broke. Had to go off to the drugstore to buy some more cassette tapes. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong. 3 hours later, I finally have my 10-minute life vision recorded. And of course, it's pretty obvious what the next step is, and that's just to listen to it. And that went really good for about 2 to 3 days. And then on about the 3rd day, I'm listening to it, and I get to that part that says, I make $20,000. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. You've never even made $200 in a business, and now you think you're going to make $20,000? And I started getting really negative about it. I'm just like, whatever, there's no way this is going to work. I decided I needed to get real. And so I kept saying, okay, what's realistic here? And the number popped into my head, 5,000 is probably realistic. Okay, now, I honestly didn't even know if I could make 5,000, but I needed 5,000 or we were going to go down fast. So I decided to change it from 20,000 to 5,000. Okay, but the thought of having to go through that entire nightmare process of recording to change one word from 20,000 to 5,000 made absolutely no sense to me. So I'm like, okay, I've got this really good solution, the lazy solution. And that was, I knew when I was going to say 20,000, I was just going to vocally say 5,000 over the top of it. So if you would have seen me back in the 80s, I would have been walking down the sidewalk with my little Walkman, and I would have said 5,000, okay? That was me vocally saying 5,000 over the top of my 20,000 recording. And that worked really good, probably for another week or so. And I can still remember this day, getting into my car, putting my babies in their car seats in the back, and heading off to the grocery store. And I must have been daydreaming the whole time, planning my grocery list, who knows what I was doing. But I remember getting to the grocery store and hearing the tape rewinding. You know, can you imagine what that sound of that tape rewinding? And I remember thinking to myself, did I listen to that? Oh, I don't remember listening to it, but I must have because the tape's rewinding. And I actually had this little panic feeling. I mean, I just thought, oh, did I or didn't I? And I came home and I found the book that my dad had given me, and on the back was the guy's name and phone number. So I called him and I said, hey, you don't know me from Adam, but my dad's one of your clients, and I created and recorded this creed, this life vision. And I have a question. How can I accomplish my goals if I can't even focus on them for 10 minutes? And I almost started crying. And he started laughing. He goes, honey, just trust me. It's going to work. And I remember saying, do you promise? And he goes, I can't guarantee anything. He goes, but just keep listening to it. And so I'm kind of hoping that you guess the end result of this story. And that is that year we made about $19,700. And let me just say, I was like jumping up and down, ecstatic about that, because I guess, you know, in essence, I had almost doubled our income. So my husband jokingly, okay, very jokingly says, you should put a 0 on the back of that for next year. Okay, and I'm sitting there trying to do the math. 200,000? That's more than the President of the United States makes. I was too scared to put 200,000 in it, but the next year I put 100,000. And took this life vision that was 1.5 pages, scrapped it, trashed it, started over, and came up with a 5-page life vision. Put the 100,000 in it as a part of that. That year we made about 94,000. And within 18 months after that, we actually had $1 million food business. So that's my story. That was, you know, the beginning of my first couple of years using life vision. And I've been using it for 22 years ever since. Your ideal life, in my opinion, is just a lot of little things on top of each other that in essence create the ideal life. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about, and I want it to make a difference for everyone.